Hey guys, it's Oliver here, aka UK Browns NFL, and I just wanted to hop on here, talk about Jerry Jeudy, his 2024 season, what that means going forward, as well as just kind of give my thoughts on the Deshaun Watson news that's come out the past week regarding, the intention for him to come back next year. If for some reason you are just here to hear my thoughts on Deshaun Watson, then I will put the timestamp in the description so you can skip ahead straight to that. If not, you want to hear my views on Jerry Jeudy as well, then let's get straight into it. So Jerry Jeudy has reached the all-elusive 1,000-yard season club for the first time in his career. He is currently 5th in the NFL in receiving yards headed into week 16. He is averaging career highs in yards and receptions with 70 receptions for 1,052 yards and still 3 games left to play. He has 48 first downs this year, more than double any of the other Browns receivers. He's been awesome, man, especially since Watson went out. He's averaging 7 catches and 112 yards a game compared to the 3 catches and 38 yards a game with Watson. It just goes to show what he can do with competent quarterback play. And, it's not even as if Jameis is a great quarterback. He's just better than Deshaun Watson. So imagine, what he could do with great quarterback play. It is exciting to think about. To put into perspective how good of a season Jeudy is having, he is 237 yards away from the second most receiving yards for a season in Cleveland Browns history, and he is only 19 receptions away from tying the most all-time receptions in a season by a Cleveland Browns receiver. If he can maintain his current numbers, then he will finish the season with the second greatest statistical season ever from a Cleveland Browns receiver. Of course, it's tough to beat Josh Gordon's 2013 season, but, it would be better than Braylon Edwards' 2007 season and better than both Amari Cooper's 2022 and 2023 seasons. Now, why does all of this matter? Well, because Jerry Jeudy is still only 25 years old and is signed through the next 3 years at an average of $17.5 million a year. The Browns were criticised by a lot of people when they extended Jeudy in the offseason, before he'd even played a game for them. I was not one of these people, as someone that pays way too much attention to the kind of minutiae of the NFL salary cap, contracts and all that stuff. It was pretty clear where wide receiver contracts were going, and 17 million a year was pretty much going to be the going rate for a high-end wide receiver too. Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel are all making 20 plus million as second options at receiver this year, and it's only going to increase. So yes, 17 million a year is wide receiver 2 money in the modern NFL. Now, of course, if Jeudy was a flop, then this would still be a bad deal. But it was obvious that the Browns were banking on Jeudy, at least becoming a good wide receiver 2 option behind Amari Cooper, with the hopes of, potentially becoming the number 1 after they moved on from Amari. And that's exactly what happened, and even earlier than expected. So because of that, the Browns have their wide receiver 1 signed for 17 million a year. When teams are paying, in excess of 30 million a year for the position. If Jeudy can put up this level of production for the length of his contract, then, he would be doing so at an absolute bargain rate. His contract APY, average per year, currently ranks 26th in the NFL, despite being top 5 in receiving yards at the minute. And, he's only going to get pushed further down that list with players like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins still yet to be paid, amongst others. So by this time next year, he probably won't even be in the top 32 of highest paid wide receivers APY. So as I said, wide receiver 2 money. This is proving to be fantastic business for the Browns, and, Berry and the front office deserve credit for it. I know there's a lot of anti-Andrew Berry discourse at the moment, and I understand why. He's certainly not free of any criticism. However, him and this front office have proved that, their philosophy of identifying and paying talent early has worked and has been incredibly beneficial to the team. They did it with guys like Grant Delpit and JOK recently. They did it with Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb. I mean, hell, they even did it with their guards. And perhaps even the most impactful, they did it with Myles Garrett. One of the first things that Andrew Berry did when he was hired in 2020 was extend Myles, which was obviously different in regards to identifying talent. I mean, come on, it's Myles, but, the same applies to paying that talent early. With Myles now being paid pretty much the same APY as, guys like Montez Sweat. They've saved themselves a lot of money by doing this, where teams like the Dallas Cowboys have costed themselves a lot of money for doing the opposite. As I said, you can criticize Andrew Berry for multiple reasons, but he's got his contract extensions pretty spot on, in my opinion, and has created flexibility in the roster and team building in doing so. Jerry Jeudy is the most recent and probably the biggest example of how beneficial identifying and paying talent early is. If the Browns waited until this offseason to extend him, then they would have had to pay him the going rate for a wide receiver one. Instead, they were able to bet on Jeudy's upside, and now they are saving themselves a lot of money because of it. Jeudy has 3 games left to build on his great season and, finish the year with one of the all-time best statistical seasons from a Brown receiver in just his first year. And, granted, those yards might slightly go down with DTR starting the rest of the way, but it's still been an incredible season and a great sign for the future regardless. So, really exciting stuff with Jerry Jeudy moving forward. And as I said, if he can keep this production up, then you're saving yourself a lot of money in the future. And it's something that I believe that Andrew Berry and this front office deserve credit for, in a time when, people are a bit hesitant to give them much credit at all. So just wanted to hop on here, talk about that, talk about how good he's been and kind of what that means. And as I said, the benefits of extending him last season, despite the criticism that they got. I think the people like myself that understood why and believed in what they were doing can feel pretty vindicated this year with the performance of Jerry Jeudy. So now, speaking of quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson has been in the news recently, which has sparked a lot of debate about whether Watson should be on the roster next season. The short answer is yes, but there is so much more that goes into that, which I wanted to discuss on here. The Deshaun Watson trade has been a disaster. There's no ifs or buts about it. I recently wrote an article for the Huddle UK about why he should never play for the Cleveland Browns again. And I think most fans share that sentiment. So you might be wondering why on earth I think he should be on the roster next year. When it comes to the Browns salary cap, Jack Duffin is the best in the business. His work speaks for itself, and there's nobody I trust more about the topic than him. I'm genuinely surprised an NFL team hasn't hired him yet. He's that good. So whilst I'll be using a lot of his work to talk about the Watson situation in regards to the salary cap, I still encourage you to go check out Jack's work for yourself. Watson will be going into year 4 of his 5-year, $230 million guaranteed deal. In terms of cash, he is owed $46 million in 2025 and $46 million in 2026. The cap numbers are obviously higher because of the system in which Andrew Berry uses to spend essentially $50 million more than the league average, pushing money into the future through extensions, restructures, adding void years to essentially take out, an interest-free loan in order to save money in the present. The financial implications of cutting Deshaun Watson this offseason essentially render the idea impossible. You would still need him to agree to a restructure just to get the dead cap charges down to around $83 million in 2025 and $90 million in 2026. Some people might say, well, Denver have managed to make the playoffs this year despite carrying a similar dead cap charge. And whilst that is true, the likelihood of recreating that not just once but twice for 2 seasons, whilst also trying to fix the holes in your roster, is just incredibly low. The star players on your team, you guys like Myles, Denzel, JOK, and all of these guys, they are they're going to want out, knowing you essentially have to throw a season away and then spend the next season trying to rebuild. So even players like Miles, who is as Cleveland through and through as they come, they're going to want out of this situation if that's what you're going to do. The most realistic outcome was always that Watson would be on the roster next year, but not playing and essentially being paid to sit at home. I pretty much accepted that since week 3 of this season. And in some kind of sick, twisted way, the Achilles injury has actually made that easier for the Browns. Instead of the awkwardness of publicly benching him and moving on from him, they can restructure him, and start the season with him on the PUP list, then essentially just pretend that he was never able to outperform, whoever is the starting quarterback for the Browns when he does come back from his injury, when, in reality, they never planned on starting him anyway. You can then restructure him and cut him after the first day of the 2026 league year, something I'm sure that, he would be more than happy to play ball with, given that, I expect that he'll want to have one more chance at saving his NFL career on another team. So by doing this, you're then only paying Watson $46 million in cash for 2025 and 2026 instead of close to $90 million in dead cap each year. You'll still be able to field a competitive roster over the next 2 years, given how the Browns spend $50 million more in cash than the league average anyway. It gives you flexibility to bring in a decent bridge quarterback, as well as buy you more time to find your next quarterback, whether that's through the draft or another means moving forward. And I'll be spending loads of time on this channel in the off season talking about the Browns options at quarterback, so make sure that you subscribe to see those videos. But there will be an $89 million dead cap charge at the end in 2027, but by then the salary cap will most likely be in the excess of $300 million, so the dead cap will represent a much smaller percentage of the cap than it would in 2025 and 2026. And obviously by then, you would have had 2 extra years to rebuild the roster into a much better position it would be in to take that hit than it is now. It's of course not the most ideal situation to essentially pay Watson to sit at home next year, but you don't fix bad decisions by making more bad decisions. As I said, I want Watson off this team as much as anyone. And whilst it's annoying to waste a roster spot, I'm not willing to essentially just throw away 2 seasons and lose multiple star players just to save that roster spot and get Watson off the team. I'm not doing it. We're too far in the deep end to start making irrational decisions. It sucks, but we've got to swallow our pride and kind of understand that this is a business, and in the business of winning, paying Watson to sit at home next year and then cutting him in 2026 is the best way out of this situation. So whenever you do see the reports about, the Browns bringing Watson back next year on the internet, don't be surprised. This was always going to be the case. And whilst they will try and spin it as, he's going to come back and compete for the starting job and all of this stuff, just know that the chances, are that it's probably just all for show, and, they're most likely just going to pay him to sit at home next year. The Browns are in a tough situation, but it's not the complete catastrophic disaster that, some people are making it out to be. There are ways out of this, and, this path is one of them. I'm sure I'll be doing loads of videos about the Browns options in regards to moving on from Watson and, what players I think they should draft or sign in the off season. But I just wanted to hop on here and, kind of try my best to squash some of the confusion that I've seen surrounding the Watson reports this past week. So with that being said, that would do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all in my next video as I preview the Browns' upcoming game against the Kentucky Bengals this weekend. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free and it really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can connect and interact with me on social media. I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and as I always say, even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great weekend. And most importantly, go Browns.